Where do you think Ron is standing when he's painting this?
Mount Washington.
It's close.
Southside slopes.
No.
Mount
Fine
Washington.
view.
Tell 'em
Fine
Mount
View
Washington.
is getting very close. Well, this is the thing about Pittsburgh. You move 3 feet and you've gone through 2 municipalities. So he's actually standing in Reserve Township. He's looking down the Allegheny River Valley outside of Millvale. When you think about this painting, this wealth that is shown in this painting, these skyscrapers that are rising out of the mountains, they came from, the wealth in Pittsburgh came from the natural resources of Appalachia. The rivers, the coal, and nowadays Marcellus Shale is going to be the next source of wealth if we can figure a way to get this gas out of the ground without destroying western Pennsylvania. It will be worth billions. And I like the painting so much that it helped convince me to change the title of my book. The original title was going to be, I love Pittsburgh like a brother, and my brother drives me nuts. And anybody who's lived in Pittsburgh for any length of time can kind of connect with that. But my original publisher suggested switching the title to this line I had early in the book, the Paris of Appalachia. I'd heard that as a put down of Pittsburgh, like a sneering coffee shop put down of Pittsburgh, like, it's the Paris of Appalachia, like the sexiest guy in the Lawrence Welk show or something. But I couldn't figure out why that's a put down. I've been to Paris a couple of times. It's really nice. It's a beautiful city. They can't pronounce Versailles, but that's okay. We all have our faults. And Appalachia is beautiful. It just suffers from bad press. I think this is one of the prettiest parts of the country. Now, I mentioned early on in all my talks that Pittsburgh is, in fact, in Appalachia. A lot of people don't believe this. They think all these hills are on loan from Morgantown. But just to prove it, there's the official map of the Appalachian region from the Appalachian Regional Commission. As you can see, you don't need much knowledge of geography. Pittsburgh is well within the bounds of Appalachia. And not only that, if you know a little more about geography, it is pretty obviously the biggest metropolis in Appalachia. And I say, why don't we just celebrate that? If we were called the Paris of the Rockies, we wouldn't run from that. If people want to call us the Paris of Appalachia, fine. Okay. Now this book is meant to be fun. And like I said, I try to come at Pittsburgh from all kinds of angles. And this is actually one of the first stories I did in Pittsburgh, at least within the first year or so living here. This was about 1989, and I was still working for the press then. And these are the Condaluccis. They live about 5 miles outside of downtown, just outside of McKees Rocks in Stowe. And in 1944, Sam and his brother Sinbad Condalucci. If that isn't one of the greatest names of all time, I'm all out of suggestions. Sinbad Condalucci, who used to drive a truck for the press, by the way, he and his brother Sam go out in 44. They're young men, and they make this handshake deal with this doctor. And they buy 3.5 acres of land right outside of McKees Rocks. And there were 9 Condalucci children, 5 boys and 4 girls. And they all started building houses. And as Sinbad told me on this memorable night more than 20 years ago, you put cement in an Italian's hands, we go wild. They built a neighborhood. They built a cul-de-sac of great houses, and they filled them with Condaluccis. Nothing but Condaluccis as far as the eye can see. And they also built a cabana, which is where they are here. And they built a pool, and they named it after their parents, Generina and Antonio Condalucci. They call it Gento Pool. And they're into their 4th generation now. And until 2006, in all these houses, there were only Condalucci blood relatives on the hill. And I include them early in the book because, to me, in a sense, they are Pittsburgh writ small. The last census count found that, and this won't surprise anybody in this room, 1 in 5 householders had been in the same home for 30 years or more. Now, the last census was 10 years ago, so that means, since the Eisenhower administration till the year 2000, people have been in the same home. And there is no metropolitan area in the country like ours in this way. No metro area is close in this way. And I think this shapes Pittsburgh mostly in a good way. We have a real collective memory of what this town is all about. Now, part of the reason our percentage is so high, of course, is that so many people left in the 70s and 80s when steel imploded. But I think it shapes the way we look at our city for good and for bad. On the other hand, the Condaluccis are different because, of course, all the Condaluccis married people from off the hill. And so they attracted outsiders to the area. It's like, as they call it, it's like the United Nations up there. Very few of them married Italians. It's Eastern Europeans and Irish. They even let the Irish in. But it's a great place. And I mentioned that aspect of the Condaluccis because Pittsburgh gets the least immigration of any of the top 25 metro areas in the country. And I think until we start, immigrants are somehow, people, I don't know, they get a very bad press these days, but I know enough city history to know 100 years ago in Pittsburgh, there was something like 5 or 7 daily newspapers in foreign languages in Pittsburgh. Greek, Italian, German, Polish, Slovenian, and all these ethnic clubs that are still around are a testament to that. So the idea that people say now that, 100 years ago people got off the boat and started speaking English, it's really not true. But anyway, I'm off the subject of the book. I'm going to get to the next slide.